Hi guys. Is this working? All right, if someone is on here, let me know if this is up and running, okay? I'm just trying to get all the technical things here done. And making sure. Seen and heard. Excellent. So excited for this. Okay. I'll just give it a minute just to make sure that people that want to catch this live can. Hey Renee! Hi Christy! Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. So glad you guys are here with me today. Let me know if you can see the board okay, or if I need to close the blinds. If the light is the light okay? Can you guys see this? I know it's a little bit tricky because there's paper behind it and my marker was running out of ink. But that's okay. Move your writing pad closer. I can do that. Is that better? Is that better? Let me know if that's any better. If you guys can see this. I know my marker was running out of ink, you guys. It gets better, I promise. Like a few pages in, I promise. Looks great. Emily. Hi, Emily. Thanks for joining us. You guys, I am so excited to be here today with y'all. This is so fun for me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit. And more people can join. As you join, make sure you say hi so that I can say hi to you guys. And you can always, throughout this whole thing, if you have questions or comments, put them in the comment box. If it's live, I will absolutely respond to them while I'm going through this. And if it's not live, I will answer them later at the live Q&A session that's going to be this afternoon. So even if you are not watching this live, even if you catch it later, put your question as it comes just in the comment box and I will answer it either right now or I'll answer it later, okay? So don't worry about that, okay? Sarah, hello. I'm so excited for you guys to join me today. Okay, let me introduce myself. My name is Jolene Wynn, and I am so grateful that Christy asked me to talk to you guys today. So if you don't know, she is my twin sister. What? So if you don't know Christy, Christy is the creator of this conference, and she brainstormed this idea. God, I guess, gave her this idea over a year ago. And she asked me over a year ago if I would talk to you guys whenever it was. It was supposed to be in person and it was going to be a whole different topic. And when she asked me, I was not a life coach, which is what I do now. I'm a life coach for women who have a spouse addicted to pornography because that's my story, which I will share throughout my presentation today. But when she asked me this, I was not a life coach. I was just a woman who was trying to get through something that happened that was very unexpected in my life. So if you can relate to that, then you're in the right place. Okay? All right, let me just make sure. Look at everybody here. I'm so excited, you guys. I'm so excited to do this live. Look, I got my all-in shirt. So happy. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so Christy asked me if I would talk about choosing to thrive in unexpected circumstances. And I absolutely love this topic. I'm a very rational thinker. So the way that I present things may be a little different than you're used to seeing things presented, especially spiritual things. So take notes. Grab a piece of pen. That's wrong. Grab a pen and a piece of paper so that you guys can take notes and let's get going. You guys, this will be recorded. You can watch it over and over. If you have questions, write them down. We will get to all of them, okay? So choosing to thrive in unexpected circumstances. This topic is just made of so many wonderful words. And that's what I decided to talk about. I decided to just dissect what this means. So the first thing that I want to talk about is circumstances. Because if we're going to choose to thrive in circumstances, we have to even understand what circumstances are, okay? So circumstances, that's life, you guys. All the ups and downs and the big things and the little things that make up our life, that is our circumstance, okay? It's death. It's weight gain, right? I'm telling you guys, the things that matter to us, right? Job loss, pandemics, hello, 2020, addiction, right? Life, the circumstances, the things that happen around us. Those are our circumstances. That is what makes up our life, right? So when we talk about choosing to thrive in unexpected circumstances, what we're basically talking about is anything that happens outside of us, okay? Weight, I know, right, Christy? Seriously. Weight gain, weight loss, struggles with weight, that is a circumstance, okay? And here is, I'll just go ahead and I'll tell you a little bit about the circumstance that hit me quite unexpectedly. When my husband and I had been married for about 5 or 6 years, you'd think I would remember the exact date and time, but I don't. We'd been married for about 5 or 6 years. We had 2 or 3 kids. And my husband came to me one day and he said, Jolene, I just feel like I need to tell you that I have secretly had an addiction to pornography since the very first year we've been married, since the first 6 months. And he said, I'm handling it and I don't need to talk about it. And that was it. And I said, what? Like my brain just exploded, right? I had no idea. Like this was total curveball out of left field. Did not see this coming. I had no inclination that this was coming. I had no suspicions. There was nothing about his behavior that was really off or anything like that. I had no clue. Very unexpected circumstance. Okay. Now, what I learned going through this with him is that all circumstances are neutral. And I want to tell you what I mean by that. We usually think that things are either positive or negative in nature, that's just the way that they are. But the truth is that the things that happen outside of us are neutral. And it's the way that we think about them that make them positive or negative to us. Okay? Now I want to make really clear, this doesn't mean that just because the circumstance is neutral, doesn't mean that you have to feel neutral about it. Right? Just because my husband's pornography addiction was neutral, doesn't mean that I have to be okay with it, or that I have to like it, or that I have to be positive about it. And it doesn't even mean that I have to be neutral toward it. I can still think that that's not okay. Right? So just because the circumstance is neutral doesn't mean I have to be neutral about it, right? However, it being neutral opens up this space for me to choose the way I think about it, okay? We think that the way that we view the world is just how it is. We think that it's just fact, that the way that we see things around us are just the way they are, and we're simply observing them. But what actually happens is that we have kind of a lens that we see the world through. Does this make sense? We see the world through our own perceptions, through our own beliefs. Okay? And that is how we interpret the things that happen outside of us. That is how we interpret the circumstances that happen in our life. Okay? Does that make sense? If you guys have any questions, make sure you guys pop them in, because I want to make sure that you guys get this. This is very different. This is a brand new way of thinking, but it makes sense if you think about it, right? Like, for example, I always give the example of weight. Women, we relate to this, right? Our weight is neutral. Let's say, I don't weigh this, but let's just say I weighed 150 pounds. That would be a circumstance and it would be neutral. And my thought about it could be, oh my gosh, I weigh 150 pounds. I look amazing. That's my goal weight. Or it could be, why I need to lose 30 pounds. I can't weigh 150. That's terrible, right? But the 150 itself is neutral. And it's the way that we look at it, the way we see it, the way we interpret it that makes what it is in our life. Let me do another example. I'll do another example from my own life was when I miscarried. I had 2 miscarriages. I have 5 kids, but I had 2 miscarriages in between some of those babies. And the very first miscarriage that I have was really unexpected and very emotionally devastating to me. I didn't know anybody else that had miscarried. And so the miscarriage itself, it was a journey I'm really grateful for now. It was when I really came to see God as my father. But if you look at the circumstance itself of miscarrying, how could I look at it If miscarrying were just bad, always, then I wouldn't be able to see it with gratitude. But I do. Because it's my thoughts about that experience that change how I see it, right? Does that make sense? How I see it, the way that I think about it, the way that I interpret that circumstance is what makes up my life, the story I tell myself about my life. Okay, let me know if I lose any of you guys here. I know this is very different, but there's two main ways that I have found that I want to share with you guys today to help you see that circumstances are neutral and how we can think about it. The best ways that I can teach you to see your life and what's happening in your life in a little bit of a different way. Okay, the first is your mindset. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is your confirmation bias. Okay, so our brains are super, super smart and they like to be right. I like to be right. I actually think I'm always right, and my husband would disagree, but I think I'm always right. And I really like to be right, and so does your brain. Okay, our brains really like to be right. And so what our brains will do is they will look to prove whatever we're thinking to be true. So if I think that I am fat and ugly, then my brain is going to look for evidence to prove that that's true. That's called confirmation bias, okay? So every time I put on a pair of jeans that don't fit, it's going to be, look, see, that's because you're fat and ugly, right? Or if I put on a swimsuit and I'm like, oh, cellulite girl, my brain's going to be like, yeah, right? It's because you're fat and ugly, right? Whatever I tell my brain to think about, it's going to prove evidence to prove that that's true. If I think that my husband's pornography addiction is a huge problem that we're never going to get over and it's ruining my marriage, my brain is going to search for evidence and find it to prove that that's true. Always. If I tell my brain that my mother-in-law is a jerk, it will find evidence to prove that that's true. Always. But this is how we view our life, right? And so we have to be aware that that's what's happening. Okay, this is how we change the way we see what's happening in our life. Not in a naive way, not in a way to pretend like what's happening isn't happening, right? Not trying to ignore what is happening, but as a new way of seeing it, right? Reframing the story that we tell ourselves and making a conscious decision to turn it around, to use that unexpected circumstance to thrive. Okay, but one thing you do have to be aware of is that your brain likes to be right and will try to prove itself right all the time. So you got to be aware of what it's trying to prove to you. The second thing, I did both. Okay, the need to be right and the confirmation bias, right? We always like to be right, and then it's going to look for evidence to prove that that's true. The second thing that I want to point out is the way that you tell your story. Okay, even in faith terms, we use the word trials a lot. If you describe your life to yourself or to other people in terms of trials, just think of what that brings up for you. Why am I going through this trial? It automatically puts you almost on defense. It puts you like on edge, like you're going into battle and you need to be prepared, right? And you need to gear up and mount up, and it makes you kind of tense, right? It makes your whole body kind of go, right? So think about the words that you are using to tell your story to yourself and to other people, and see if that's really helping you at all, and see if there are other words that you could use that could be better. Again, not in a way to try and ignore what's happening or to try to rewrite it in a way that is incorrect, but just as a new way of thinking, okay? To give yourself space, just to see what's happening inside your body while this happens. I'll give you an example. Okay, so for me, the word pornography, very neutral. I could use it all day long. Doesn't bother me. I have no emotional attachment to it. Nothing comes up, right? But when we shorten that to porn, that's much harsher for me personally. I have a harder time using that word. There's a lot more emotion that comes up when I use that word. So it's something that I'm very careful about, and I actually use it on purpose so that I can feel all of those feelings, right? But it's something that I noticed about myself when I was telling the story. Does that make sense? There are certain words that we will use and certain words that we avoid, and we aren't conscious of it a lot of the time. But here's why. It's because every word that we ever use has two meanings. It has the literal definition, and then there's our personal interpretation, or the meaning that we place on that word. Okay, so just like mine with pornography and porn, I have a lot more emotional attachment to porn than pornography. So I have to be very careful. It was something I had to become aware of, right, when telling my story. When I use the word trials, I have a lot more emotional attachment, a lot more woe is me is attached when I use the word trials to describe what I'm going through. So that's just something I want you guys to consider, is the words that you're using to tell your story. Why are you using those words? And what are they making your circumstances out to be? Because your circumstance is neutral. And we'll get back into, I'm going to go more into depth into that later. Okay, I'm just going to double check, make sure nobody has any questions. Okay, we're going to move on, but make sure if you guys do have questions, you drop them in the chat, okay? And I will answer them, okay? Even if it's something I said before. Those are circumstances. So when we want to choose to thrive in unexpected circumstances, first we have to know what circumstances are. This is circumstances. Circumstances are life, and they are neutral. And then we get to dive into not only the expected ones, but unexpected ones. Like I said, my husband coming and telling me that he was addicted to pornography very secretly for the last 5-6 years of our marriage, very unexpected. Had no idea that was coming. And if there were ever a time that we had a whole slew of unexpected circumstances, that's the year 2020. Like, can we just say, right? Yes, Christy. Oh yes, everyone got worksheets in their emails today so that we can work on this, okay? I created worksheets to help you guys kind of go through this and work through it in your minds a little bit. So again, take notes. You'll be able to watch this as much as you want, but there are also worksheets that you got in your emails that can help you with this, okay? Okay, so here is the interesting thing that I watched over the last few months as 2020 happened and everyone's anxiety shot through the roof. Anyone else? Like, I'm even a chill person, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening, right? And here's why. It's because our brains are inherently lazy. Did you guys know this? So fun, right? This is why. We have this thing, it's called the motivational triad. Our brains are motivated by three things, okay? They want to decrease pain, increase pleasure, and decrease the amount of effort it takes to do both of those things, okay? That's why, and so our brains are lazy. They will look for the easiest way to do things, the thing that expends the least amount of effort. And our brains, that's one of the reasons why our brain likes predictability, because we don't have to think as hard about what's happening. Let me give you an example. Things that you've never done before, you have to use a lot of brain power and concentration to focus on, right? So the first time you drive a car, I remember the first time I drove a car, I was so scared. Christy was in the car with me. My dad was in the car. We were in like the middle school parking lot down the street. I was so nervous. All of a sudden I got behind this big machine and I was like, okay, so my hands need to be here, and which one is the gas and which one is the brake, and I need to put the car in park. I didn't even press the gas pedal. I just took my foot off the gas. I was that freaked out, and my mind was so hyper focused, right? That's what happened the first time I drove a car, because I'd never done it before. But fast forward, I've been driving a car for a long time now, and it's easier, right? It's predictable. Sometimes I even go on autopilot, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I going? It's probably to Sonic or Chick-fil-A, right? Or Target. Those are my favorite places to go. So it's probably, I'm like halfway to Target before I realize that, oh my gosh, I'm in the car and I'm driving to Target. You know what I mean? It's like your brain doesn't have to use as much brain power because it's done it a million times. The pattern is predictable. It's the same thing as like riding a bike. The first time you ride a bike, you're trying to figure out how to balance. The more you do it, the more predictable it is. Your brain understands it, and you don't have to focus on it quite so much. You just do it. Same thing as reading. I'm teaching my little kindergartner daughter, she's learning how to read. And it takes so much focus and concentration, and what letter is this, and what sound does it make, and how do I connect it to the other letters that are next to it. But right now, like when I don't think that every time I read, I just read. Your brain likes predictability because it doesn't have to work as hard. And then it goes on autopilot. However, here is the truth. You can never predict the future, ever. Your brain just likes to think that it can. It likes to think that it can predict that your husband's going to walk through the door at 5:30. It likes to predict that your children are going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. I don't know why we think that. It never happens, but still, sometimes we think that it will, right? Our brains like to think that we can predict the future because then it doesn't have to work as hard, okay? So when unpredictable things happen, your brain all of a sudden goes on hyper-focus drive, and your anxiety and your discomfort shoot through the roof, right? All of a sudden your brain is like, there's danger out there. We need to be aware of it. I don't know what's happening. Nothing is the same, and there is nothing predictable in our life, so you need to be on alert 24/7. That's what happens when something unpredictable happens, okay? We don't like, and here's what I'm going to teach you so that you can hopefully relax when something unexpected happens. One is that it's totally fine, and the only reason you're freaking out is because you thought there was predictability, okay? And so your brain is uncomfortable. We don't like not knowing. That's another reason. When unexpected things happen, one of the reasons we have a hard time with them, one, it's uncomfortable and our anxiety is going through the roof. Two, is we don't like not knowing. Especially in this day and age where we all have access to smartphones, we all have access to information like that. We don't like not knowing. That doesn't sit well with us. We're not used to it, right? And, excuse me. So that's one of the reasons too, when something unexpected happens and we don't know what's coming next, it's very uncomfortable to us. But it's also fine, okay? And this is when we need faith. This is one of the things that I love about this, is because when the unexpected thing happens, that doesn't mean that it's unexpected to God. It's just unexpected to us. And sometimes we forget that. And that's where faith comes in. We don't know what's going to happen next, ever. We just think we do. We have predictable patterns, things that we can predict, right? We predict that our husband comes home. We predict that we will be safe today, that we're going to eat dinner at a certain time. But we don't actually know it. So when the unexpected thing happens and we don't know what's coming next, that's when we need to dig deep and get into our faith. That's where faith comes in. When we have predictability, we don't really need faith. That's why when we have these unexpected circumstances, our faith is what really can ground us in that moment, okay? So here's something I thought was funny and I wanted to bring up too, is that even our prayers can be answered in unpredictable ways, in unexpected ways. And I have my notes here because I wanted to make sure that I hit all of these because this is just a good story. Okay, so when my husband and I, it was probably in February or so, my husband and I were talking about like our life goals. And we were saying, okay, here are the 3 things that would be amazing. My husband's a dentist, so I said, if you worked less, that would be so cool. And just down the road, who knows? So if you worked less, that would be amazing. If we could homeschool our kids, we would love that because then we could travel a little bit more. And we have a brick and mortar business that we opened in December. And we said, if we could get that to a place where we didn't have to think about that quite so much, that would be amazing. And so we kind of prayed about it and just kind of told God, what we wanted in life. And he said, it's no problem. I can make all 3 of those things happen like that. Watch. COVID. And that's what happened. And my husband didn't go to work because he's a dentist and that got shut down and our brick and mortar business had to close and all of the schools closed. So my kids were homeschooled. Surprise. So even though I got everything I prayed for, it was all in a very unexpected, unpredictable way because God has a sense of humor, right? And here's the thing about things that are unexpected. They are only unexpected because we are expecting something else. I put this in the worksheets, but so make sure you go through those. But I just wanted to kind of give you this food for thought. Like, how are you expecting God to show up? Yes, I am to blame for the pandemic. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen, you guys. I know. Okay. How are you expecting God to show up in your life? How are you expecting him to make you a better person? I mean, I remember praying that, Lord, I want to be used by you. I want to become better. I want to learn more about faith. I want to come to know you. right? When I prayed for that, guess what I got? A miscarriage. That's how I knew God as the Father. When I wanted to feel God more in my bones and have more of a firm testimony, guess what I got? A husband addicted to pornography. I'm not saying that God made him addicted to pornography. I'm just saying that the things that the way we expect God to show up in our life, when he doesn't come forward that way, that's when we have a hard time. But if we aren't expecting God to show up a certain way, when we don't put our expectations on him, that's when it's easier to have. That's when we really come and allow him to be God in us, if that makes sense. God does have a sense of humor. Yes, 100% he does. Okay. Unexpected. Let's go into choice. This is my favorite, okay? So we talked about circumstances and things that happen unexpectedly, which is basically our whole life ever, right? Now I want to talk about choosing. Choosing to thrive in unexpected circumstances. I love agency. I used to not. Can I totally just be 100% honest and tell you that? When I was pregnant with my first child, all of a sudden I realized I have no control over her choices in her life. None. Didn't bother me when I was growing up, right? Because I was like, oh, great. Yes, I have agency. I can choose. This is amazing. Then I had kids and I was like, hold up. This is a stupid idea. I don't want her to be able to choose. I want to make all her decisions for her. I feel like that would be so much better. I'm so much more wise. You guys already know that I think I'm right all the time. So I felt like that would be a great idea. I came to learn a lot about agency and I actually love it. And God is so smart, okay? Agency is God's greatest gift. And it's so important to him that he gave it to everyone. Literally everyone on this planet. Any human being that's ever created has agency. And here is why I love it so much. Because our circumstances are neutral, we always get to choose our response. Just like Job. I just always come back to him. He always chose his response to his circumstances. And here's the thing is that Satan fights this a lot. Satan fights agency so hard, especially with addictions. He fights with addictive behaviors so hard. He pushes addictive behaviors on us so much through temptations and everything because he wants us to relinquish our agency, right? Which is what addictive patterns do. Addictive behaviors, they kind of get you into a space where you are relinquishing a little bit of your control, relinquishing a little bit of your agency. And that's what Satan wants. Satan wants you in a place where you feel like you have no control. He wants you in a place where you feel like life is just happening to you and you can't do anything about it. He wants you in a place where you are not going to show up as who God knows you can be because you feel like you have no choice. That is never the case. And this is why it's so crucial to understand that your circumstances are neutral because your circumstances do not create your feelings. We are not having a hard life because of what's happening to us. Things happen and we choose how we respond. Again, because the circumstance is neutral. Okay? And here's what I wanted to go through with that. I remember having a conversation with, when I was in college, with a kid who was also in college. And I remember him talking about how he was really upset and he was angry. And he said, I can't help it if I get angry. I can't help that. That's not my choice. And I remember thinking in that moment that couldn't be true. I was like, that doesn't sound like God to me. Right? Because God gave us agency. God wants us to choose not just our actions, but our thoughts and our feelings, okay? God did not create us without choice. That's not how he created the universe. He created us. He created the universe so that we could have control over our actions, our emotions, and our thoughts. All of our feelings come from our thoughts. Our circumstances can't make us feel a certain way. We choose that. And it's a lot of times this is very new and it happens subconsciously, which is why it's something that we have a hard time understanding or really becoming aware of, is because all of this is happening below the surface, right? Things we're not aware of, thoughts we weren't aware we were having are creating the feelings within us. But I want you to just open up the space for circumstances to be neutral I'm going to go through an example to kind of clarify this. But allowing circumstances to be neutral is what grants us the agency to choose how we think and feel about it. If circumstances were inherently good or evil, then we would have no choice how we responded. And that's not God. And that's not agency. We always, always, always have a choice. Okay, so I wanted to go through an example to kind of just help you see this a little bit. Okay, so our circumstances are neutral, but our thoughts about them is what makes them positive or negative. And that thought is what creates our feeling. So when my husband first came to me and he said that he was addicted to pornography, one of my first thoughts that I had was, we can totally handle this. C is circumstance, T is thought. This was the thought I had. I said, we can handle this. And when I thought that, I felt very hopeful. I felt motivated. I felt empowered. I felt inspired to work together and to communicate and to move forward and to push through this. And that all came from this thought, we can handle this. But take that same circumstance. My husband is addicted to pornography. He came and he told me that. One of the hardest thoughts that I had was, if I were enough, he wouldn't do that. And I felt that to the very core of myself. I felt that so deeply, that I was lacking, that it was somehow my fault. That if I were enough, if I were more sexier, prettier, more of whatever it was that he needed, obviously I was lacking something that he needed. And if I were able to be enough for him, then he wouldn't choose that. And that made me feel rejected. That thought. The circumstance is neutral. The thoughts and the feelings that we have about those circumstances are our choice. Always. Because God loves agency. Okay, look, I got a new marker. So exciting, okay? I want to talk about thriving, okay? Again, if you guys have any questions, pop them in the comment box so that I can answer them, okay? Okay, I love that Christy chose this word. It's not a word I use a ton, but I've started using it more because it's beautiful and it's powerful. So stay with me, okay? To thrive is a verb, first of all, and a verb, as my kindergartner is learning, is an action word, okay? A verb is to thrive is to grow or to develop well or vigorously. It's to prosper or to flourish. Just close your eyes and think of what comes to your mind when you think of flourishing. I think of plants. I am not so green-thumbed, like literally would kill everything in my house if I had plants, so I don't. And we actually don't even have a garden bed because I don't like plants. But that's what comes to mind when I think about flourishing, right? Okay, here is what happens. The unexpected circumstances in our life do not mean that we have to decrease our faith or limit our life. Oftentimes we use those as an excuse. We use the unexpected circumstance in our life as an excuse for why we aren't showing up with faith and why our life isn't going the way that we want it to. But that's our choice, okay? We have the choice to use our unexpected circumstance to become even greater. And you guys, this was like just off the top of my head, the people in scripture who used an unexpected circumstance and chose to thrive. We like to think that they are kind of an anomaly, that they aren't real people. You're like, yeah, well, they're special, but they're not. I mean, yes, they are, because God chose them in a certain way, but God has also chosen you. God has chosen you and he's chosen me to live for him. And what we choose to do with that is up to us. Okay? Think about Job, right? His wife, his kids, all of his wealth, all of his servants, his entire family, gone. And yet he chose to thrive. Okay? Think about Peter. Think about Eve. My goodness. Like, if God kicked me out of the Garden of Eden, like, not that was pretty unexpected in that they didn't have a full grasp and understanding of what that was, right? She could have left the Garden of Eden and been like, well, that was really rude. I'm never worshiping him again. But she didn't. She said, you know what? I'm going to rededicate my life to God. I'm going to teach my kids about it, and I'm going to prosper, and I'm going to flourish, and I'm going to learn how to bake bread and give birth to children in the wilderness, and all the things that she learned how to do as the first woman. Guys, I have no idea how she did that, but she chose to thrive. That was her choice, and she didn't have to. Getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden was a circumstance, totally neutral. She chose to show up after that. That's her choice, okay? Noah. You guys, if God told me to build a boat, first of all, I wouldn't know how to do it. Second of all, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't choose to thrive. I'm pretty sure I'd be like, no way, man. It's not even raining. We've been in a drought forever. It's not going to happen. He chose to show up. He chose to be obedient. He chose to thrive. Okay? Moses too. Esther, the one that really got me, I mean, Esther, of course. Like, unexpected circumstance, hey, all of your people are going to be slaughtered. Pretty unexpected. And most people would say that that was like a really terrible thing, and what on earth are you supposed to do about it? She showed up. She chose to thrive. She chose to stand where God placed her and use it, right? Maybe God placed you in this time for this purpose. I can't quote that scripture exactly, obviously, but you get what I'm saying, right? Somebody go find it, paraphrase it for me, right? Esther, man, she showed up. She chose to thrive in a very unexpected circumstance. And think about Mary, the mother of Jesus, okay? Let's just say you're like chilling in your house and an angel comes to you and says, hey, you're going to get pregnant right now and have the Lord's baby. I would say that's fairly unexpected. I mean, I know she was a good woman, but like, I don't think she saw that coming. Like, I'll just be honest. And she could have said no, or she could have even said yes and still not showed up. Like, she still had to show up as his mom in that role her entire life. And she did. She chose that. She chose to thrive because our unexpected circumstances do not dictate our faith. They do not dictate what happens in our life. We get to choose it. Okay? I have so many comments that are coming on and I love it. Let me just make sure I get it. Oh, it does take so much practice. Emily, oh my gosh. Yes, it does. You guys. So true. But man, does it take so much practice and lots of prayers to choose our thoughts. Yes, practice. So much practice. Mind blown, Margie Jean. Yeah, I know. You guys, the first time I learned this, I was like, what just happened to my brain? Our unexpected circumstances serve as a springboard to something greater. Yes, Sarah, often they can, but only if we choose to. Because we also have you guys know these people in your life, right? Like, there's these people that every bad thing has happened to. Christy and I were talking about this today. She was telling me about someone who bought a ticket to this conference, and here's all the things, like, and they sent her this email about how wonderful it was and how grateful they were for it, and here's the 97 things that have been going on in their life. And I was like, I've literally never had anything hard happen to me. That's what I feel like, right? You have these people. I'm sure every one of you has at least one person that you know that has had every hard thing happen in their life, and they're still super positive and super faithful. And sometimes you look at them and you're like, yes, but how are you doing this? But here's how. It's because our circumstances do not dictate what becomes of our life, what becomes of us. We can use them as a springboard to become something greater, but only if we choose to. Okay? Created for such a time as this. Thank you, Sarah, for pointing that out. Oh, surprise pregnancy. Christy, that was her big unexpected circumstance. I know. You guys, all of our unexpected circumstances are different. I even wrote these down. I was thinking of even just the speakers for this conference, you guys. Even Bethany yesterday, if you missed her message, go watch it, because she said something. She said, God is the same always, even in 2020. And that just hit me, because as I was thinking, right, we were coming back, we like to think about these people as if they are special, as if this is no longer how God operates. I don't know why we think that. It's exactly the same. God is the same in 2020 as he was right here. He gave them unexpected circumstances, or unexpected circumstances came to them as a result of other people's choices, right? My unexpected circumstance wasn't something God gave me. It was something that came as a result of my husband's agency, right? Sometimes that's what happens, but it's all the same. God has chosen us, and we need to show up. because God is the same, even in 2020, right? Your unexpected circumstance may not be something physical. It could be that maybe you're not as happy as a mom as you thought you'd be. Maybe it's that you feel anxiety, right? Your unexpected circumstance doesn't have to be something outside of you. Maybe your unexpected circumstance is that you don't feel as close to God today as you did yesterday. But you still get to choose how you show up. Okay? All right. I mean, even just, again, take the speakers that have been speaking all week and that are speaking all week. Our unexpected circumstances could be being dissatisfied in a marriage, or not easing your pain, right? Like Bethany, or facing a traumatic accident like Laura, or an unexpected death of a fiance like Elise, and she's going to be talking tomorrow, or completely changing your life around because you found God like Al, who's talking on Friday, right? Or maybe it's having the faith to be obedient when God tells you to create a women's conference like Christy. Okay, our unexpected circumstances are all different. Okay, you guys see this a little bit? Here we go. Circumstances do not create your joy or your misery. Okay, because what's outside of us does not create what's inside of us, because that is not agency. My husband's addiction was my unexpected circumstance, and I had two choices. I could let it define me. I could make it mean that this was negative and that there was nothing I could do about it, and I could make that mean that I was paralyzed for the rest of my life. I could use that to define me forevermore, define my marriage, define how we parented our children, how I showed up with God in my faith. Or I could decide my own action, and I could choose to thrive. And you guys have this exact same pattern that you can follow. Whatever your unexpected circumstance here, you have two choices. You can either choose to let it decide your reactions for you, which would mean that you lose your agency, right? You choose to let it take over, and then you wither. And then you're paralyzed. And then you don't show up the way God knows that you can. Then you don't become who God knows you can be. And this is where Satan wants you, just so you know. Satan wants you in a place where you feel like you don't have any control and you're not showing up and living up to your potential the way God knows that you can. Or you can decide how you're going to respond. You get to choose. And you can choose to thrive. And this is where God wants you. This is his plan. This is why we're here. This is not why we're here. This is what people think we're here for. This is why we're here. We're here to choose to show up. We're here to choose to thrive no matter what's going on in our lives, no matter the way that we feel. Because God knows that you are great and that you are greater even than you think you can be. God knows who you are even better than you know yourself. He knows your potential and he knows your worth. And so whatever happens in your life, don't use that as an excuse to wither. Don't use that as an excuse to not live the life that God knows that you can. You can use it to become even greater. Oh my gosh, I love you guys so much. Let me just see if there were any more questions that popped up. If you guys have any questions, you can throw them in the chat. That was probably longer than you guys thought it was going to be, but this was so fun. Thank you guys so much for staying with me. Emily, thank you for joining us. I'm so glad that you did. You guys, if you guys ever have any questions for me, you can find me on Instagram at Jolene Wynn Coaching. You can email me. My email is coach@jolenewynn.com. I have a website, jolenewynn.com. You guys, if you need me, find me. I do have my podcast that I share a lot of stuff on. It's called The Porn Addict's Wife. I actually have two podcasts. I also have one called The Cause of Christians. And that is where I kind of dive into what it's like to live live your faith on purpose, right? To live intentionally, to choose God intentionally. So you guys can look all that up and find me. I would love to talk to you. I do have a Q&A at 4 o'clock. Thank you, Christy, for reminding me. I am going to be going live at 4 o'clock Eastern time today. If you do have a question and you are not live on here right now, you can still tap it in there, or you can email a question. This is how we show the world we are his followers. Yes, Janet is. Okay, so this is how it's going to go. We have the Q&A at 4 o'clock. You guys, I'm an open book. If you have questions about my life coaching, if you have questions about addiction or my husband's story or what it was like for me or whatever you want to know, you guys come with your questions. I will answer them live, or you can submit them ahead of time if you can't make them live. Thank you, ladies, so much. If you guys enjoyed this, you guys make sure you guys can still have your friends join the conference. They can still buy tickets. Christy has a discount code at the top of the website, allinwithgod.com. Just send your friends there. Let them know, because this will all be recorded. It will all be available. You can have it forever, and you guys will all get worksheets emailed to you to help you with all of this. And again, you can email me if you have any questions. I know this was a lot. I know it's new. I know it's different. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm like so excited. I wish this was in person. This would be so much cooler, but still so amazing. So glad it's virtual. Thank you, Emily. Thank you guys for showing up. Come back at 4, and I will see you guys then.